spoiler.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we're coming to you live from a couple places on the internet. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Kick. We're on Kick now.
I see Kick.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but
it.
I signed up for it, and now we're live on there. Maybe you're listening later wherever you get your podcasts, and if so, you can get ad-free versions of this podcast and all the rest of our podcasts at patreon.com/Comic Book Club. And speaking of which...
We're live on The Void and The Abyss as well. If you have a random app, hit us up with it.
Hollis.
We'll shout into it.
Pete's going to lose his mind if we don't go into this. Once a month, we pay tribute to our amazing Patreon supporters at the $5 and up level by reading off their names as a little thank you. So let's kick it off with Aaron C. Hollis,
Aaron Flo,
Adam DeRose,
Adam Marks,
Adriel Borland,
Elena Fontenot,
Andrew Primo,
Andrew Tillman,
the mysterious AP,
Beercat PhD,
Bradley Hanson,
Gary Matthews,
Chad Post,
Chen Smale,
Christina Jaramillo,
Christina Rensfield,
Chris Terralizzi,
Clemens Luer,
Corey Chicheri,
Corey Smoker,
Dan Snow,
Daniel Cabral,
Daniel Fuentes,
What the Danny Heck,
David Donaldson,
Dennis Scott,
Derek Mainhart,
Doug Sodaway,
Dylan L.J.,
Eduardo Martinez,
Emmett M.,
Enrique Chooms,
Gary Meyer,
Gerard DeVier.
Ian Ray,
Alex, you do not need to do it the Pete way.
Oh, no, that's how his name is pronounced.
No, it's definitely not. Isaac Carter,
JG,
Jack Foster,
James Connolly,
Jared Sloan,
Jaron Townsend,
Jason Donahue,
Jeffrey Whaley,
Joe Benton,
John Henderson,
Jonathan Jong,
Jonathan McCool,
Josh Wright,
Joshua W. Broxson,
Joshua Wigler,
Kelby,
Kevin Kleinrock,
Karen Broderick,
Lance Kaminsky.
Luana Thomas,
Luca Sink,
So nice, it's Matt Tice,
Matthew DePalma,
Matthew Schofield,
Max Baker,
Michael McAuliffe,
Michael Tillman,
Nathan Hall,
Nelson Kelso Martinez,
Nick G,
Nick Grayson,
official CBC chef Brett Macris,
Stray Bullies, Omnio Soul Art,
Orndix,
Orlando Kelly Jr.,
Oidus Larson,
Pedro A. Rangel,
Provocative Ambulance,
Rev Mikey,
Robert Pedinato,
Roxanne Tyler,
Russ Burlgape,
Sam Lim,
Sarah Schottmuller,
Sarah Schaefer,
Scott Carpenter,
Scott England,
Severin,
Spencer Go Bills,
Stanley,
Steve Cook,
Taylor Bryan,
The Big Flood,
The 12 Bench.
Tom,
Troy Milleneux,
That's all I got.
oh, Victor Perez,
and of course Will Buchanan,
and Will Diaz,
and William Leach,
and Zachary Bachman.
and Zika's Viral Comics.
There we go. Thank you all so much for pledging and supporting. For real, we would not be able to do this show without all of you. And for anybody out there, patreon.com/Comic Book Club, at $2 and up, you can get access to our back catalog going all the way back to 2011 with many hundreds of podcasts that are otherwise no longer online, access to our Discord, early episodes, ad-free episodes, as I mentioned before, and much, much more. So there you go. Again, thank you very much. And we have a great show for you this evening with some amazing guests. Why don't we bring in our first two guests here? They are the creators of the new comic book from Image Comics, News from the Fallout. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Condon and Jeffrey Allen Love. Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Very excited to talk about this book. So it is coming out June 25th from Image Comics. It's 6 issues. I won't mention any spoilers, but we have had a chance to read the first couple of issues. They're phenomenal. They are just artistically, writing-wise, everything. You guys have done a great job. But to give like a little bit of the pitch here, it takes place in an atomic experiment back in the 1960s, and depending on which way you look at it, either things go horribly wrong, or perhaps from certain aspects they go horribly right. either way, they go pretty wrong for a couple of people nearby, and things spiral out from there. I'm being as vague as possible because I don't know how much of the concept you want to talk about. Chris, what was the general idea, and what did I leave out, if anything?
I mean, you kind of got it exactly right. From a certain point of view, sure, things are going exactly as they should. But from a human standpoint, not so great. But yeah, it's what I describe it as is apocalyptic Americana, and that's sort of just it sort of encapsulates the time in which it's set, and it also describes the events of the book as well. But yeah, it's essentially about people trying to find safe haven when everything goes wrong.
Yeah. Before we get too far into it, I did want to mention that every week on the show, we have a professional chef down in New Orleans named Brett Macris. You may have heard his name a couple of minutes ago, who works at a restaurant called Shift, and he either creates or curates a cocktail for us. And this week, he created a cocktail based on your book called Atomic Alley. It is rye whiskey, mezcal, cherry liqueur, lemon juice, orange bitters, and cracked black pepper, and it goes off like a bomb in your stomach.
What a selling point.
Yes. Anyway, there you go. Just wanted to present that. That's the Atomic Alley.
Love the black pepper.
Yes.
Very cool.
But let's get back and talk about the book itself. Jeff, I want to ask you about your artistic process here, because really this isn't like anything that I've seen before. Visually, the way that it plays out is really fascinating. Is the inspiration, and this is for anybody on the audio podcast, you're working mostly in these silhouettes. Is the inspiration like what's left after an atomic fallout, or where did that come from?
I think it was just a wonderful coincidence that the way that I've been working for a while has been heavily silhouetted, and it kind of worked perfectly for the book, and that it's sort of these, and also I'm super inspired by film noir, so Touch of Evil, things like that are really big influences to me. So that sort of influence that I get also from Chris's writing, it just sort of everything sort of came together in terms of our shared loves and influences, and it just worked really well. That I saw someone describe it as the shadows left after an atomic blast on the wall, and it really does work really well. But it really, the way that I came to that way of working was that I was doing book covers. So I was doing a lot of science fiction, fantasy book covers, and I still do some like for Conan and things like that. But I was not, I didn't start working until I was in my mid 30s. I was a really dumb kid. It took me a long time to grow up. And I was also just not trained as an artist. I was self-taught until my 30s, and I had a lot of problems understanding value and things like that. So I had to really make it like a puzzle for a dumb guy. It's either black or it's white. And that made sense to me. And so by being able to work that way, I was able to educate myself. And so the way that, and also in our current way of buying books, buying things, we see it on our phone screen. We see Amazon little thumbnails of the book cover. And so by having it be super simple and be able to be read really simply is very powerful right now in terms of where people are seeing stuff. They're not being able to see the big paintings, our experience of seeing images is really shrunk down. So if you can have a silhouette, a really strong structure, read, then that's where most people are seeing it. So that's kind of how my style developed. And then I just was, again, not very smart and said, I'm going to paint every single panel of this comic, not realizing that was, kind of painting myself into a corner and making it really hard for myself.
Literally.
So it was really a way of I'm just stumbling my way through the dark in my career, and that I found a writer who wrote something that was really wonderful and just seemed like the perfect fit for me. And we really are in terms of a collaboration. I feel like we're greater than we are apart for this book. We're really this is a really great project because of our strengths.
It's really interesting to me that you said you're stumbling through, because I feel like this book feels super intuitive, or almost like an artistic witness. You're talking about how the cover is easy to see on a phone, but it's also the way people would paint a wooden sign after a nuclear disaster. So it's crazy to call it American apocalyptic Americana. Feels both present and past at the same time. And also this book reminds me of the this is very specific, the Twin Peaks, the final season, the 8th episode, I think. Can you make sense of everything I just said, basically, or talk about all of any influences or the intuitiveness of the book?
Yeah, I mean, the influences for me going into the book were, black and white horror films like Night of the Living Dead, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Birds. It's not black and white, obviously, but the vibe of that film. There were so many things that we were pulling from and that we were influenced by. I certainly, I love the episode of Twin Peaks. That sort of just. I actually had written it before I had even seen that, and so it was kind of like, whoa, this is kind of really cool to see that. That we're on the same wavelength here. And yeah, there's certainly some sort of connective tissue there. But it was on accident. But it was just wonderful to see that, because I actually just saw it like last summer, I think, for the first time. But yeah, it's basically, this is us trying to make a mid-century sci-fi horror fantasy, and the best way to do that is to dive into the stuff that you've experienced that actually was that, and to pull all the best things from it. And so that's what we're trying to do, I guess. I don't know if that answered your question.
I didn't really ask a question, but I will now. Like, it feels like there's such a sense of dread in the book, and I feel like that was true based on in that time frame, but it's also true now. I feel like that's my personal experience, I guess. Talking, are the modern connections to this book?
Modern connections. I would think that you could look at our current political climate and see so many people pointing out what's happening and explaining the common sense of certain decisions that are made and people making rash decisions and not listening. And I think that is probably the biggest of the modern influences, just trying to talk sense to people, and they're just flat out not listening, which is, I think, very modern, very current. And yeah, it's I just, every day that I get an update on my phone, with the current news happening today, I'm like, how is this happening? And this is that's essentially the story that we're telling, is this. Somebody who comes into a diner and explains to everybody, hey, we need to, board the doors and windows, and have everybody be like, what? Why would I listen to you? And that's a big part of the book. And I think that's definitely a modern influence. That's our modern world.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's also a sense, and maybe this is me, but I feel like we were discussing this just a couple of weeks back on the show, of the whole idea of atomic threat coming back around. Like, it never went away, obviously, but I think in terms of culture, in particular pop culture, obviously when it first came out, people were like, this is a grave threat for the entire world. And then there was a period where people were like, there's other threats to worry about.
We moved on in the 90s.
Yeah,
Saved by the Bell was pretty fun. So
yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Cheers, etc.
Yeah.
But why do you, I think you kind of just answered it, but why do you think this is coming back now?
I'm going to let Jeff answer that one.
Sure, I can talk about that. So I grew up in a military family, and I'm 47, so I'm born in 1978. Lived all over the world. Lived in Germany during, and my father always thought that the Berlin Wall would never come down. I went to East Germany when it was communist. I lived in South Korea in the 90s when Kim Jong-il was dying, and they thought, he may just decide, let's just do it. Let's invade. And they had the world's biggest standing army, and they could have invaded South Korea. And I asked my dad, he said, yeah, we're all dead. We'll die in 3 days, but they'll just load up the nukes on pickup trucks and just start driving, and they'll get as far as they can. And there's nothing we can do. So I grew up with, getting under the desk, having the drills, being told, but my dad worked at SAC. He was 50 stories underground, and being involved in that sort of terror of the world could end at any moment and it's out of our control. And that, my childhood was spent traveling the the world, while I thought my father was combating that. And I thought that that was over, right? The Berlin Wall came down. It was a new world. We had come together. Maybe we're moving more towards Star Trek,
Yeah.
in terms of the world. And then recently, the pain that I see on my dad's face when he sees what the current administration has done, where we are now allies with Russia, we are now allies with Putin. So those sort of things, that has brought that back. Those fears, those things where Pakistan and India recently had a conflagration, and previously that would have been squashed by diplomacy. You can't count on that anymore,
Right.
So not to get too political, but I think that this is a very timely issue of that we are circling back around to fears that many of us thought were put to rest. Many of us thought that we had that moving through time as a people, that we learn and we get better, and we're always heading towards the something better. And that may not be true. We may be going in circles, and we're circling back around towards some of the dark stuff before hopefully we can come out of it and head towards the light. And I think that with this book, that's kind of like what I got from it before even talking with Chris really about it, is that it's one person saying, am I the only sane person in the world? Am I the only person that sees this? And that's a feeling that I bet a lot of people have these days.
Given that this is something that you've thought about and lived with your entire life, when you're sitting down at the drawing board and then living with this and getting into it even further, is that cathartic at all, or does that stress you out?
Is that a nightmare?
Is this a nightmare? Are you okay?
Are you okay?
Yes, artwork is the best cathartic thing you can do in terms of making something. That's why I remember during COVID, where people were saying is what I do as an artist worthwhile? Is what I do worth doing? When the world is ending and but you look at how people come home from work, they watch a show, they read a comic, they read a book, and I think that catharsis through fiction or stories really does allow you to take all this worry and anger and go through this experience and lose it and be free of it. And I think that that's people need that. So I think that, what I saw is that people going through that, and I hope people now, because we're kind of going through a very similar thing, that people are just stressed out, freaked out, they're worried, they're upset, they don't know what's going to happen in the future, and they are just starving for that release, to be taken into some other story and to have their fears sort of, we are all going through it, and to come out the other side with, well, here's the way that I'm going to try to go through it. And I think that all artists, we should be trying to give that experience in our work. It shouldn't be shallow. We shouldn't think, it's just comic books. Comic books were some of the most meaningful things in my life. So why can't we provide that experience through what we do to people?
Now, where did the title News from the Fallout come from? Because this book, hearing News from the Fallout, I expected it to be like, my dearest Sally, I have written, from this Fallout here. But it's very action heavy. It's very horror driven. How do you bring those ideas together? Or have I not read enough issues to really wrap my head around it yet?
There is a story reason for the title, but also when I was coming up with the idea, I fell into this title. Sometimes the words just click for me, and this was one of those circumstances where the words just kind of click together. The original iteration of the idea was called Old Joe's, which is the diner in which it takes place. But I came around to this title called News from the Fallout, and I thought it was very evocative, and it kind of gave me a place to go with it that I didn't even think that I was going to go. And I guess you'll just have to keep reading to find out. I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but yeah, you'll find out the story reason for the title.
Yeah. I did want to ask you, this is a little bit aside to it, Chris, but last time we had you on, I think we were talking about Enfield Gang Massacre.
Yeah.
And at that point, I mean, obviously I don't know what was going on in the background, but you had that Texas Blood, and then you had that Enfield Gang Massacre, and now you're writing, I think, 56 different titles, something like that. How are you balancing all of this? How are you working out your schedule? Because you got Ultimate Wolverine, you got Green Arrow, you got this, you got, I assume, a lot of other things going on too.
Yeah. I mean, I just try to. The biggest thing for me right now is to try to give each script its due, to give it its time to shine, to really spend time with those characters and let the characters speak. So I try to do it. You know, I've heard that some writers will, you know, write multiple scripts in one day, and I'm not that kind of person. I don't think that I feel like that's a disservice to the story you're trying to tell. I mean, at least for me, I feel like that would do a disservice. So I try to spend a week on whatever script I'm working on, and you know, even if I'm not writing in that full week, I'm at least like living in that world in my head. And so, yeah, so whether that's Ultimate Wolverine or Green Arrow or News from the Fallout or any of the secret projects that I'm working on that I can't talk about, but but I mean, it's difficult, but it's also, I mean, this is the best job in the world. I get to play with toys.
I knew it.
It's I get to play with toys for a living, you know, and I mean, it's even better when I get to play with my own toys, which, you know, is News from the Fallout or that Texas Blood, or the Enfield Gang Massacre. Whereas with, you know, Marvel or DC, I have to give the toys back after I'm done playing with them. You know, I may have broken a knee or an elbow or two. But you know, they're still their toys, so I have to give them.
This is the wrong arm on Green Arrow. I think that's Firestorm's arm.
But yeah, I think also, like, the thing for me is just to try to you know, find stories that I want to tell, and that's a bit, you know, because Wolverine is a big book right now. I have been getting a lot of more offers to do books, and I just, you know, I really want to only tell stories that I feel like I should tell, can tell. Have something to say with. So I'm trying to be a little bit more picky. So that's another aspect of it, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been reading your works from the beginning, I feel like, or at least when the first stuff that started to emerge. Big fans. I feel like you're a meticulous writer.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that is time consuming, like you're saying. You're putting a week into these scripts. Like, how do you know when it's sort of baked, or when is it fully baked for you, either from a premise point of view or an individual issue?
I mean, I don't really feel. I feel like I continue to write it until it goes to print.
Oh, so it's a deadline.
Jeff, real quick, how's that for you?
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, I understand. It's illustration art is always, or commercial art is art done under the circumstance. It's the same thing with writing. People often don't know the circumstance around it. So the deadline is always the thing. You know, Vermeer did 13 paintings in his life, and he's remembered as a master and a legend. But he only did 13 paintings. You know, like one painting every 2 years, 3 years. You know, we're stuck on monthly deadlines. So it's under the circumstance. So I totally get it, and I enjoy that. You know, I enjoy the rock and roll. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah, because I mean, I do feel like it's, you know, you're just, you know, sometimes you've written something and then you've turned it over to the artist, and then you can go, wow, this actually works a lot better. Even if it's just dialogue, most of the time it's the dialogue that changes for me. Like with The Goddamn Tragedy, a book that just came out, I believe last week, or 2 weeks ago, I forget now. But that was a book that a lot of the narration that goes throughout the book was not there originally.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And I had thought about adding narration and had let the editor know that I was thinking about adding narration, but it just didn't happen until later in the game, and I'm really glad that we did add the narration, because I felt like it added a lot to the story. I mean, I felt like it was necessary as well. And you know, it's sometimes you just don't, you know, you need the time to step back and look at something, and you know, this industry is so fast moving that it's hard to have that time. But I mean, with creator owned stuff, especially with News from the Fallout, I mean, I don't think I really make any changes at all. I mean, once we get the lettering in from Haas, I look at the lettering, and I really generally don't have notes for him unless if there's a period out of place or something like that. This book has been just sort of, it's been exactly what we wanted it to be from the get-go. Whether that's to everybody's taste or not, I don't know, but it's for us. I mean, this is a perfect book. It's everything that I want it to be, and I think Jeff would probably say the same.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Excellent. I'd also, from having read the first 3 issues, and I won't say too much more about it, but really does not feel like anything else on the stand. So I'm really excited to see what you guys do in the subsequent 3 issues. Before we wrap up here, before we let you go, Chris, I know we talked about a lot of stuff, and I'll let you plug anything else you want to plug in a second. But Jeff, anything else you would like to plug? Anything else people should be checking out from you?
Sure. All of Chris's books are amazing.
Wow.
Agreed.
He's a great writer, and I think everybody should be supporting him because he's definitely one of the best working right now. I have a new book out called The Last Battle at the End of the World. I also have 2 new editions of previous books called Notes from the Shadowed City and The Thousand Demon Tree, which have behind the scenes stuff. I'm often asked how I make my art. It's all traditional. Nothing's digital. It's all made by hand. Awesome. So there's sort of behind the scenes stuff in there where people can find out my secrets. They're not secrets, but they are. So it's an open book in there if people are interested. There's process stuff in the back of those books, and they're available through your favorite local bookseller.
Yeah. Cool. And Chris, like I said, we covered a lot of stuff, but anything else you want to plug?
I just want to tell everybody that I'm grateful that if they pre-ordered Using the Fallout. I mean, this is such a personal book and a big swing, and I really hope they enjoy the book when they do get to read it. News and the Fallout, Ultimate Wolverine is still coming out, Green Arrow is still coming out, and I have some really fun books that are going to be announced soon. One of them is going to be announced at San Diego, so keep your ears peeled.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll mention one other, just because James Emmett mentioned it in the comics, Far Down Below, which we really enjoyed the first issue of from Mad Cave Studios as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. There we go. Thank you so much, guys. Really looking forward to the rest of the book.
Work.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Later.
All right, there we go. Once again, the book is called News from the Fallout. It's from Image Comics.
So cool,
it's awesome. Coming out June 25th. So tell your comic book shop you would like it because it rules. And we've got another guest for you on the show this evening. She is the writer behind, among many other things, Paper Cuts, Flash Gordon, The Girl from Infinity, Volume 1. Ladies and gentlemen, Marguerite Bennett. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Very excited to talk about this book. This is coming out July 1st from Paper Cuts, if I have my dates correct on my notepad. And this is a awesome, all ages, YA-ish, like it sort of feels like it's right on the line there, reinvention of Flash Gordon that takes it in a whole new direction that I absolutely fell in love with. It has some great art by Bev Johnson. This is a delightful book. And it's part of, just to frame it up for anybody who's listening or watching, I think part of like this greater reinvention that Paper Cuts and Mad Cave are doing with the whole Flash Gordon property, providing things in different directions depending on what people like. How did they bring you on board? How did you get involved in this? And what is the most general question to open up, but like, what's your experience with Flash Gordon, if any?
Oh, sure. So yeah, way back in 2019, in the before times, they called me out of the blue. Someone from their publisher had seen an interview of mine or a panel or something, and had thought that I would be a good fit and had a good take. And so they approached me with the idea, but the main pair being gender swapped. And so, one of the major, I don't want to say criticisms, but like one of the major failings that I've certainly had over the years is that when people, come to my table or my booth, they're like, okay, well, what can I get my 7-year-old? And it's like, nothing. Pornographic horror about insect lesbian monster women. And anyway, so it's just, so this was sort of my course correction, frankly. To be like, wouldn't it be nice if I have something I could give my nieces? So,
that's really funny.
I thought it would be a lovely opportunity. And I personally didn't have, as much exposure or interaction with Flash Gordon. Honestly, like one of the major ways that I came through it was like through a Seth MacFarlane gag on Family Guy, and
right.
it's like seeing it parodied, frankly, because even Star Wars, came out of the fact that Lucas couldn't get the rights to do a Flash Gordon adaptation, and so he pulled the pieces that he wanted. I mean, the Emperor, all these elements, were drawn from the original source material until it got to the point that like, oh, this has been so osmosed into our culture. If it comes lately, it looks like it is the imitation, not the original. And so I didn't have, unfortunately, like the fond childhood memories, but I'm hoping that I can once again course correct that and make sure that the coming generation, at least in my family, does have positive associations, falls in love with the 1980s movie and, everything else to go with it.
Well, when you're taking something like this beyond the gender swap, I do think there's a lot of course correction is a great word, because reading this, there's a lot of problematic elements with Flash Gordon, I think, and you embrace them in a really interesting and more modern way. But what, on the opposite end of the spectrum, what is scripture? Like, what was there anything that the editors were like, here are some Flash Gordon musts, or things that you picked out from your research that you felt like you have to hit these points for it to be Flash Gordon?
Well, I really fell in love with the old comics when I was reading them. It was, one of the problems that I think people have when interacting with kids, as a former kid, is, they want to be like this boulderized, like improving literature. That they want you to sit around like reading the dictionary or things with like good morals and only that. And so it was just like, oh my God, this is dry as sawdust. And so I really liked the things that frankly like kind of cut to the chase. And that's what I was aiming to do here. I mean, drawing from Flash Gordon, it's like, okay, spaceship, alien planet, crash landing, here we go. And
aggressive.
Everything
about Flash Gordon is aggressive, I feel like.
And like, or if you read Peter Pan as a kid, it talks about Neverland, being like one of those maps that's all shrunk up. And so, like, all the boring parts have been cut out. And
so that's really funny.
The lagoon and the volcano and all of it's together. And that's what I wanted for this. It's like, all of the boring parts have been snipped, and it's just, we're just going to hit the ground running and have so much fun.
Wow, that's great. You go.
Oh, I was just going to ask you about the general coordination, and this is jumping a little bit ahead in it, but it is part of this whole like Flash Gordon multiverse. So again, sort of taking the broad view on things. What is that like? I mean, we've talked to so many different people that have like, okay, there's a whole writer's room, or we have a Slack or a Discord or whatever, or is it just you going off and doing your own thing here?
In this case, I mean, this was born of time in lockdown.
Okay.
And so this, not to like dump my purse out, but like this became, where I lived during a lot of lockdown, while I was trapped in my house. And so it became like the window to the outside world. It became like the place that I could go and escape and adventure to. And, it's bizarre because it sort of represents like one of the darkest parts of my entire life.
Oh, wow.
But it was like, if I ever had like any kind of spark of positive emotion, I was like, okay, we're going to put this here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you could have this project when you were going through a tough time. I really love the problem solving that Flash Gordon has in this. It's like, so it was such a refreshing kind of thing to read. And I also think like, as a kid, I didn't get any examples of that. It was always like, like He-Man and G.I. Joe, and it was, shoot first and ask questions later. So this was really refreshing to read.
Yeah.
For you, were you consciously being like, okay, we're not going to kind of like just fight our way out of problems, or what? How was your kind of process?
Yes. And on the opposite side, I didn't want to be, I mean, traditionally, the literature given to boys is, it's a boy main character and he's going to solve problems by punching.
Yeah.
Literature that's given to girls, with a girl main character, the girl's going to solve problems by making everybody her friends. And it's like, okay, y'all kind of need both.
Yeah. Both useful skills.
Alone. So I wanted to make sure that, Flash solves some problems with punching, Dale solves some problems with compassion. And they both have to solve problems with understanding like what's the question behind the question. So why are
what's
we being
really going on here? Yeah.
What are the symptoms are one thing, but what's the disease? And so I wanted them to have that sort of like which ultimately, is a compassionate approach. Like, you require empathy to be able to understand, okay, what is the other person going through? What are the pressures and, issues at hand that have caused this to arise? And how do we treat those in order to make sure this doesn't happen again? And so I really do appreciate that their problem solving in particular caught your attention, because I was quite proud of it.
Yeah, it should be.
Chris was talking earlier about like taking a week to write a script and sort of like not juggling. It's something longer like this, and someone who's busy like you are, like in this being like a bright spot. Were you going back and forth, being like writing something a little darker, a little more adult, and then jumping back to this, or was it just hard yes on that?
Yeah. And so like it was definitely that I was. I mean, especially in such an emotionally dysregulated time for a lot of us, I feel like can say. It did feel very much like I was like scraping, like, okay, so any kind of positive joy is going to go here. Anything horrible and negative is going to go into this one. And the same thing as they were saying, like, I like to be able to, concentrate on one project at a time, but unfortunately that is just not realistic, right now with like the increased speed of the publishing schedules. But I will say that, over the course of lockdown, I wrote a lot more than is currently published. So we will see if the public likes this, then maybe the volume 1 is a real thing. And there's more to come.
Great. Well, that's awesome.
I felt like the biggest change of the book, just from established Flash Gordon lore, which I'll fully admit I'm not fully familiar with, but just sort of tangentially through maybe seeing the movie in the background and things like that. But even more than the gender swap is the villain, who is known in the old serials and everything as Ming the Merciless. It is a racist stereotype. I think we could say that. And you overhaul it completely to make it this merciless emperor who, thankfully, is never called Ming, at least in the first volume. What was involved in that? Like, what was to make sure, and this is similar to the earlier thing, but like, what was involved in making sure that this felt consistent with what happened before, but you're separating it from those racist tropes?
Yeah, so I wanted to, the same thing, what's the question behind the question? It was like, okay, so how do we do something that does respect the legacy of the thousands upon thousands of other people who worked on this and built this? This is not mine. I am a guest in this house. But also, how do I make sure that it is relevant and exciting for new readers, so that we don't wind up throwing out the baby with the bathwater? And so in that case, like, I looked to Aura as to his sister, to try to figure out, okay, what would have created a character like this, because I want to keep her as intact as possible. I adore her, and even just down to like her name. Okay, we have something that can be applied to space and observations of bodies in space. And so I went back to a lot of words used in astronomy, and I wound up looking for words that might contain letters or syllables similar, so like with Ming the Merciless, I didn't want that to have such a particular racial and specific culture association. And I found azimuth, and I was like, okay, well, we've got 3 out of 4. And it was like, and I found out that it was, talking about like the zenith of a certain star, when it's observed. I was like, that is beautiful, because like one of the things that he calls her, when he's teasing Flash, is like he calls her this little fallen star. And I was like, all right, there's something there. We're going to work with this.
Nice.
And, again, having once been a middle grade girl, I was like, okay, I know exactly, who's the Bishonen straight out of my shoujo manga, that I want to write here. And so from there, it all felt quite natural, frankly.
Yeah, I was definitely getting a little bit. You don't get into the romance stuff too much, but the way Bev Johnson draws it, there's definitely there's a little bit of heat.
There's a spark.
There's a
little
spark
star.
going on.
There's little stars.
And do you have? Are there any plans for like a little bit of a triangle? Because it feels like Dale Arden could be like, he's the nice guy.
Stop pushing your own
Bro,
chips.
there's going to be a polyhedron.
Nice.
Yes. I did want to ask you about another book and another reinvention that we've really been enjoying that we've been doing, which is Witchblade, which is a wild, big change for the character. And if you don't mind me saying, because we talk about this every month, like a very sexy book as well.
Yeah.
What was involved in that? Because that's something that is a little more modern, obviously, than Flash Gordon, but you really have changed it in very big and very small ways throughout.
Well, while also staying true to the stuff,
Yes.
the arcana of it, I guess.
So that one I did, from the age of 7 was a fan of Witchblade.
Oh, hilarious.
The leftover comics, like from my boy cousins and, like the boy friends that I had growing up. And, but I would get them really piecemeal. So it's like, okay, you get like number 2, number 5, number 11, and you have to like kind of figure out a story to make this coherent. And so actually, I think that might be why I cut my teeth on writing other people's fan fiction and then other people's licensed properties. But yeah, I loved Witchblade. I loved Spawn. And it was so that was something that I had a long term love for the character in the world. In terms of pitching, Mark Silvestri and I actually wound up like sharing a cab on the way to a show in like Minnesota or something. It was freezing cold. It was the dead of night. He was like, I actually came to this show to find you to talk to you about this.
Oh my God.
Hilarious.
We signed the deal like before we got to the hotel. And what I pitched him on was like, okay, angry, sexy, feminist, Witchblade. That is what I want. Like those are the keywords, and that's the goal that I'm going for. But I don't want any of the sexuality to be hollow. It has to serve the plot. It has to, tie her deeper into her body. I mean, like forgive me if I'm sounding too pitchy or too granular.
No, love it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the characters, their powers are innate or their powers are from something. The Witchblade crashes into Sarah. Sarah doesn't ask for it. Sarah doesn't volunteer for it. It takes over her body. And it largely has a will of its own. Like that is a body horror story right there. It can use her as a puppet. And so she has to learn and, horrible as it is, earn control over her own body again and wrest it back from the thing that makes her special, from the thing that makes her powerful. And so there's a lot, frankly, to unpack. I know we were talking a little bit of politics earlier. Lot to unpack. Now of all time.
Of course, yes.
Well, I think that's one of the things, to your point, that's working so well about the book. And this is nothing to slag off the old books, but I think, there was the whole cheesecake of it, of like, ooh, she's getting her clothes whipped off by this metal thing. What's going on? This really, it flips it. It flips it from those tropey 90s cover things that were built to sell comics. I mean, obviously we still need to sell comics, but like on the covers, to delving into what does this actually mean? What does this actually mean for the character Sarah Pizzini, not the reader that is picking up the comic book?
Smart man.
Yeah. Another aspect of the book that we talk about a lot, and maybe you can answer this question for us. This is the stupidest possible question, but Pete and I talk about this in particular. Whenever the darkness shows up, we're like, oh, sick, it's the darkness. And I can't explain why. Why do we like it?
Why do we like the darkness?
He turns you on. He's sexy.
Yeah, is it?
I'm going to toss that question to Mark, who we don't have waiting in the wings, but I feel like, let me see if I can like get him on for you. we can have
hilarious.
Him.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have him answer that question. I defer all. I mean, like he's very protective of the character, and so anytime the darkness appears, like that is like Mark and I have had like a 2.5-hour Zoom call before.
Wow, interesting.
Well, then what is that like? What does he sort of set down as the rules for the darkness when he's showing up in this new Witchblade
Mark,
universe?
and I'm not going to say shit that's going to get me in trouble.
Oh, okay.
We don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah,
we just love it.
Out of the human and animal desires, like I don't know if there's ever been an instance, where you've frankly been turned on by something that your brain is like, this is actively repulsive. Like I can be honest, like I remember like, being younger and like smelling something intoxicating and like, what is that? And like going searching like, through the woods to try and find it. Like it smelled incredible. And I got there and it was a dead carrion crow.
Whoa!
What the absolute fuck?
Whoa!
And it was just like what part of like like the animal brain is like this thing that you should be absolutely repulsed by. Some synapse in your brain crossed these wires that was like this is similar to pleasure somehow, or this smells good, or like something that you should seek out. And I don't know, that memory stayed with me and really bothered me. And so I think that, there's something in Jackie that like awakes even back beyond reptile brain, like a time before reptiles, like, back to like if there was an evil amoeba corrupting another amoeba. That's what
I love
the
the
darkness
head
is.
rubbing.
That's the zero issue I've been waiting for.
Okay. If any of that made sense. I know that there was like several disparate answers to a single question.
That's great.
I mean, maybe this is a
Thank you.
Mark question as well, but we've got Witchblade, we've got the darkness. It feels like it's building out this new version of the classic Top Cow universe. Is that something we're going to see more of potentially going forward?
I don't know what I'm allowed to say.
Okay.
All right.
Well, then don't say
Nice.
anything.
Great.
So sorry.
Great.
No, we don't
Sometimes
wanna get
nothing
in
is
trouble.
something.
Okay.
Well, let
Could
me
be.
ask you another question that maybe you're not allowed to talk about, and this is an entirely different topic, but there is a movie that is being made of your work, The Lot, by Akilah Cooper, who wrote Megan, and I believe did Megan 2.0 as well. Is there any update on that?
You keep asking me Hollywood questions that I can't think about. I'm so sorry.
All right. Well, then I'll ask, given that we have already discussed what it's like to tackle other people's work and sort of bring their vision out, whether it's Flash Gordon or Witchblade, obviously it's your vision, but like, what is it like to then have somebody taking on your vision, adapting your comic?
I'm so sorry. This is live, and you're watching me process some emotions about information.
That's
I didn't have
that's
before the
fine.
call.
That's what it's all about.
I love Akilah Cooper's work. I can say that honestly. Like I adore her stuff. I mean, like even some of the more obscure things that people don't exactly think of when they hear her name, and so that is a huge honor, and I'm actually very excited to see what she does with it. So that I can say earnestly, 100% truth.
Maybe something back firmly in your realm. Now that you've done sort of a younger leaning book in Flash Gordon, are you going to do something original in that world that is all yours?
In
that genre, not that world.
The niece-friendly
That is a good
world.
question. I was really waiting to see how the response is. The book comes out in July, and if it turns out like people are like, "What is this? This is horrible and dated and gay secretly," and like I guess I'm waiting for feedback to tell me whether I should quit my day job. So we'll find out.
I mean, on the day job bit, while we're just continuing to jump around, but this came out, I think, just last week. Mommy blog from Ninth Circle.
Yes.
We loved. That book was so dark.
I'm so happy to hear it.
Oh my gosh. For anybody who didn't read it, it's about a mommy blogger who lives in a town where there's some serial killings. I won't say specifically how those two thoughts necessarily connect because I don't want to ruin it, but delightfully dark, but it's also interesting, I think, because it's part of Ninth Circle, which is putting out these prestige format horror one-shots. We've gotten Garth Ennis, we've gotten you, we've got one other that I'm totally blanking on so far, but what is the MO with that? Like, what were sort of the guidelines when you're creating something like that? Because that's an oversized horror tale done in one.
Oh yeah, I mean that was a story that I was sitting on for years and years and years, and I pitched it a few places, and everyone was like, "This is morally repugnant." Like,
get out of our office.
Yeah. And so it's a very mean book. It's a mean-spirited story, and it took probably 10 years to find a publisher where they were like, "Yes, you can absolutely do this, sweetheart."
Yeah, we're all mean now. Well, it's also there's a lot of comedy in it too, and just straight up jokes on the page, which I thought I love that.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm super happy to hear that. Yeah. So it's been really lovely to do that. I would love to do more with them. We'll see what the response is and the sales and all the business elements that are not sexy or interesting. But I would love for them to get more of my banned books.
It's interesting to hear you say that you've been working on that for 10 years, or at least had that pitch sitting around for 10 years, because it feels so timely. Like, it's so tied into TikTok, mommy TikTokers very specifically. I'm sure there was some tweaking going along, but what was it like originally? What changed in the process over this past decade?
Goodness. Less than you would think, unfortunately. And the elements that have changed the most, such as the introduction of AI, weren't really incorporated into the story. I think that it's sort of a terrible thing is that the tribal nature, of the way in which women are allowed to leverage power. I mean, since they're deprived of it in other spheres of the society, the social element is really the only weapon that they have left. And so they, that element, I think I could have told the story, in the 1700s in Versailles, if I really needed to, in terms of rumors and gossip and how these things are spread. But with the, advances in social media, you have the ability to create, such a broader net. And so, it used to be, okay, you've got a small gated community type of thing, so it's, very, very insular. But now you can sort of do this. Caesar had this siege around a town in Gaul. And so, they built a wall around the town. And so then Caesar built another wall around his troops around the besieged towns that no reinforcements could come. And so it's that sort of layers upon layers upon layers of pressure where it's okay, you can try and call for help, but what you're really going to get is, if you broaden this and let more and more people know, as many people are going to help, more and more are going to pile on to hurt. And so, the exponential reach of social media is one of the great horrors for me in the modern world.
Well, it definitely comes out in that book, which is great.
Yeah.
To turn it back to Flash Gordon just before we start to wrap up. I know you said it's kind of TBD, but are you in the works on a volume 2 or 3 or anything like that? Or
I have already given them so much.
Yeah.
And so what they decide to do with it is entirely up to them.
Okay.
I would love for more of it to come out. Lockdown was a long time, and there's a lot of pages.
Just Flash Gordoning away for
awesome.
years at a time.
I think
That's
the book is
awesome.
great. I would love to see volume 2,
Yeah,
volume
definitely.
3, and beyond. Before we let you go, obviously we touched on a lot of stuff, but anything else you would like to plug?
Goodness. No, I think that's it in terms of what's been announced. Yeah, Mommy Blog, Witchblade. We're all set.
All right. We nailed it. Marguerite, thank you so much. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for all your work.
And good luck with the book. Excited to hopefully see more.
Talk to you soon. Laid up.
All right, there we go. Once again, the book is called Flash Gordon, The Girl from Infinity, Volume 1 is coming out from Paper Cuts on July 1st, so you can probably pre-order it from your bookshop.
Niece friendly. It's great.
It is niece friendly.
Niece
We're going
friendly.
to use that all the time. And folks, it is time to move on to our next section, which is my favorite section because you all make it up. It is your audience questions. And for audience questions, all you got to do is drop a question in the comments and we will check it out. But what you guys drinking? Pete, you drinking stuff from your fine selection of artisanal beers again?
Yeah, my mixed bag. Yeah, I'm drinking the Headhunter.
It takes out the artisanality of it when you say it's a mixed bag.
Like
Like a plastic bag
pack.
at the bottom of your fridge.
Yeah, yeah.
Very
Justin.
nice. But I have an unmixed bag of Labatt Blues,
There you go.
straight out of Canada.
Excellent. Well, while we wait for questions here, I'll just mention a celeb sighting that I had today.
Alex.
I was walking around trying to find the new One Piece volume with my son, and who do we pass by? Kristen Milioti of the Penguin. On the street, having a very heated conversation on her headphones. And that's
Heated?
all I don't know. She was very happy.
Yelling at her agent.
Uh-oh, page
Yelling at her
6, Zalbin over here.
What a
was like,
scoop.
I won't do it. You got to kill the Penguin. That's how she
Yeah.
talks.
Not under 5
Also,
million.
maybe not Kristen Milioti. Maybe just like a very big guy.
Nice. Well, I hope to hear this covered in Comic Book Club News.
Yes, for sure.
With our new gossip spin-off that we're doing.
Oh, boy. Word on the
I
street
will
is-
actually mention also, this is not on the celeb beat, but I'm going to be doing a couple of things this summer again at Bryant Park.
Very nice.
Starting
Oh, yeah.
next,
You love Bryant Park.
I do love Bryant Park. I'm going to be playing Frisbee Ultimate, a little Ultimate, so come on by.
That's
bro.
pretty busy for Ultimate Frisbee, Alex. I don't know if that's...
We're gonna play through. I wouldn't worry about it too much. No, every summer I'm lucky enough to get to host these talks at Bryant Park. The first one is going to be next Tuesday, June 10th. At
You got a show.
12:30.
You can't do it.
What?
You
At
do a show on
12:30
Tuesday.
p.m.
Oh,
12:30 p.m. It's free. I think if you check in with them now, you may be able to get a free copy of the book. We're going to be talking about Archie Meets Batman 66, which will be fun, by Jeff Parker, and I'm blanking on the name of the artist. I'm sorry.
What if
what if
your boss won't get? Will you be signing like notes for people so they can skip work and go see this?
Yeah, that's how that works. Doctor's notes.
Signing notes.
Just be like,
prescription
I,
pad.
Alex Albin, approve him taking time off to discuss this important topic.
Wow.
I mean, I think the idea is people take their lunch break, come on over, hang out in Bryant Park, and chat about some comics. They have a bunch of other great book talks as well throughout the summer. It's a really fun program.
Cool.
While we're shouting stuff out, a podcast I do called Mission to Zix has just launched a prequel called The Young Old Durf Chronicles, built around my dumb character. For real?
Oh, that's great.
And the first episode got into the Tribeca. The Tribeca Film Festival has a podcast division now.
Oh,
So that's this coming week. You can check out the Tribeca site. Come support us. We're in competition, and we're also doing a bunch of shows this coming weekend at Caveat. There's one at 1:30 in the afternoon, and I don't even know if this has been announced yet, but we're doing a show later that night at Caveat as well, and then at UCB on Sunday night.
Whoa.
So come hang and hear me talk like a maniac.
Awesome. So
Sweet.
cool.
So different from how you normally talk, or
It's a slightly different maniac, yes.
Really?
Yeah. If you've never listened, the podcast
classically
is.
trained actor.
I'll pit. My character. The show's called Mission to Zix. It's like a Star Wars, Star Trek type improvised comedy
We've had
world.
actors
you've had the gang on.
yeah, I mean, we've heard a lot about this.
I play like the shitty Obi-Wan character.
Cool.
Who believes in the
I
space.
wouldn't say typecasting. I wouldn't say that at all.
Yeah. Coming from my Jedi partner, it makes sense.
well, we have a
Jedi
couple
life partner.
Oh boy, we got a pretty interesting question here from Hartford 1988 on Twitch. Mark Merritt announced he's ending his podcast this fall. Will Comic Book Club become the longest running podcast? And this is great because this gets to the heart of our long running rivalry with Mark Merritt.
Yeah, before he announced that he was ending it, he did call us first, and he sort of gave us the crown.
Hey,
you know?
no, I'm not going to stand for any trash talking of Mark Maron. All right, he's a super nice guy.
This isn't trash talking.
He once took a subway ride home with me from work, and he was really nice.
Just the two of you on the subway? Were you driving?
Well, he had
Was this a dream you had?
He had
definitely
he had
sounds like
a
a dream.
short-lived show on Comedy Central, and I worked on it. I was like a low-level PA. And we were walking out
A
of the building.
low-level PA. All PAs are the same.
Real quick. So you were
PA.
walking out, and he was like, are you going that way? I'm going this way. And you were like, no, I'm actually going that way too. And he's like, oh, great.
He's like,
and then he got to somebody who's like, what are you taking, the A or the F? And you were like, what are you taking? And he's like, the A. And I was like, oh, me too.
Yep. It was less awkward, but he was super nice and talked the whole time.
You talked the whole time with him?
Yeah.
Wow, what about? Was he like, well, because weren't you doing a little bit of stand-up maybe even back then?
Oh, yeah.
So that was his realm as well?
When you were talking, did you say, what the fuck at any point? Because I feel like
I was like,
maybe
man,
you were his
this
muse.
TV show sucks and it's going to get canceled, but I think you have a great voice. And
you have a
should
future
just
in
fucking,
podcasting.
I love about when you go off on shit. And he was like, I appreciate that.
Wow.
He was taking
Anyway,
notes the
yes,
whole
we
time.
are taking his crown, and Pete is why he quit. I think you can say firmly.
And that's our only audience question, so I think we covered it.
No, Alex, wait. People are going to
there
ask
more?
one. People are thinking. People are being a little more thoughtful.
They're
We've
taking
talked.
too long time.
We've
We have to
touched
get
on a
on to
lot of
trivia.
business.
We have trivia with Pete LePage.
That's
is our
okay. We
next-
can cut it. Actually, I think.
Yeah,
I think we can cut it.
Yeah.
Really, Pete?
No, he never cuts.
All right, there we go. It's trivia with Pete LePage.
This is the part we give back to you, the lovely audience. It's an opportunity to win $25 free to Midtown Comics online, because if you had $25, you'd want to go to a comic book shop. You know what I mean? I mean, come on. Get some
know what
comics.
I'm saying? Know what I'm saying, Vern?
Yeah.
Ooh,
I know what
goody
you're saying.
squeegee says me very quickly.
All right. The squeege.
The squeegee.
Goody squeegee.
Shit. All right. Today's trivia is about the moon is following us, and a small nod to the legend, George Foreman, R.I.P. champ. All right. Please listen to
When
all
did he
three.
die?
He died so long ago.
Are you doing catch up?
Yeah, I got to catch up. I mean,
sure.
Yeah, it's Norm, he jumped the list a little
sure.
bit.
Yeah,
you got to go back.
I'm tracking the people that are jumping the list, and I think this is something we're going to have to talk about.
Well, good. I look forward to you bringing it up on our meetings that we have.
We haven't had one of those in a while.
Sure haven't.
Yeah.
So please,
Michael Tillman says George Foreman died. He grilled himself to death. It was pretty
the hard part is all the juices flow out of you.
Well, that's part of the feature of it. That's the feature.
But I had a problem with that from the beginning because I was like, "Oh, the flavor, George. We're losing all the flavor here."
No, you're supposed to drink the juice tray.
Yeah.
Also, George Foreman Grill is a panini press. I got bad news for everybody. That's what
Hold
that
on.
is.
He died. He died. That's
Show some
disgusting,
respect.
Justin.
Yeah.
Show
Sorry to
respect.
spoil one of your trivia questions.
So please list all three options before making your selection. Here we go. Question number 1. Who is the amazing writer and sometimes artist on The Moon is Following Us? Is it A, Daniel Warren Johnson? B, no, I can't, my back is killing me. C, Carrie Moore.
Could we change the name of this section? I know it's been almost 20 years, but could we change the name from trivia to opinions with letters before them?
Oh,
That's good.
Oh, all right, hot take. I didn't know. After 20 years, you're just you're coming.
I would say Pete's rants with pauses in them. Is a good title for this as well.
Yeah. So
Goody
maybe
Squeegee
how about
says
fun
A.
facts? Will you give me fun facts?
Fun
They're
facts from
barely
us?
Facts. They're mostly.
What are you talking about? Daniel Warren Johnson is the writer on this book.
Right.
That's
But there's-
the lightest fact.
Still a fact.
That is not
Still a fact.
Well, I guess I can't argue with that.
All right. Well, we got an A here, so let's move on to the next. opinion.
Speaking of fun facts, it's tied in really nice. Fun fact: Alex's daughter is not named after the daughter in this book, but they do share the name blank. Is it A, Penny, B, Wish You Were Bringing Beer, C, Briggin' Snow?
Wait, what? Bringing snow?
His name is Brigham Snow.
Briggin' Snow.
Brigham.
Briggins.
Oh yeah. Hartford points out he died March 21st,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is fine. We should still
said
pay
March.
tribute to people.
Yeah.
Yes,
for
I
sure.
love a spring death.
People are dying like crazy. You can only get to them as quickly
Pete,
as
as an observer of death, do you feel like people are dying more often now? You would be a great sort of statistician.
Oh, thank
A
you.
mortician statistician.
A. Goody Squeegee says A.
A is correct. Yes, thank you.
I agree with the name changes. Snow as cocaine.
No. Not Snow as cocaine.
So, okay. It sounds like you want some coke. Is what I'm saying.
Not a fan.
Not a fan of coke.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm more of a Mountain Dew guy. Here we go. Last one. Question number 3. What is the name of the badass mom in the comic The Moon is Following Us? Is it A, Sam? B, cross between Flash and Batman's dog? C, Barry Ace?
This is good.
Oh,
yeah.
I see. Flash and Batman. Flash, comma, and Batman's dog, not Flash's dog and Batman's dog.
That's right.
Okay.
Does Flash have a dog?
Wish he did.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
I mean, after
Yeah,
Superman
we lost
comes
Loretta Swift too. What about Loretta Swift, Pete?
I'm getting there.
You just don't care about her.
No, man,
And why are you
come on,
focused so much on celebrities? What about regular people, Pete?
Oh, we
Don't
have
they
a
deserve-
rare steal. The name changes came in with A before Goody Squeegee can do it.
the squeege is there, though.
Yeah, Goody, he also did it. Congratulations, Goody Squeegee. You have won trivia, and you are getting a $25 gift card to Midtown Comics. Shoot us an email. We'll get that to you.
Yeah.
Pete.
I think the comments right now are very funny. There's talking about Loretta Swit, hot lips. I tried the spicy Mountain Dew. It was unique. Everyone's moving as fast as through their thoughts as Pete does in trivia, and it's worrisome. We're taking the wrong lessons from trivia here. You don't need to
Or
think
the
that
right
much.
lessons.
No.
That's on who you ask.
Pete, what is the secret movie you were paying?
Of course,
tribute
we're
to?
talking about the 2010 award-winning movie, The Fighter.
Sure. Mark Wahlberg was in
That's
that?
right.
Oh, wow.
That's right.
Wow, Alex. I forgot what a
Christian Bale
studied
also.
Wahlberg fan you are.
He's a
Every
huge
day I go to
Wahlberger.
Wahlburgers and I quiz myself.
And you like more of his political work, really, than his actual movie roles, right?
Yeah,
He's more of a funky bunch guy.
Yeah, I like all the stuff that he did back in the day.
Oh, his billboards.
And some of the other stuff.
Nice, good.
Some of the more controversial aspects. I'm a big fan of those.
You piggybacked when he said that stuff about being on the plane at 9/11. You were like, I would be there too,
Same.
right, Mark?
Yeah, me too. I'd love to. Anytime.
Call me.
Anyway, as we all know,
What
new
happened?
comics come out tomorrow. What are you guys looking forward to? Pete?
Oh man, a lot of great stuff. Ultimate Wolverine. The moon is following us. I don't know if I brought that up enough, but
You did almost too much.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
Oh.
Those are the two I'm looking forward to.
I'll tell you what, you get us every time with cutting off early, Pete, but that one really got both of us. And let me say, as a podcaster, it's a weird goal, just creatively.
I love dead air. Justin,
Give
what
me-
about you?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I really enjoyed. Got to shout out Storm Number 9, one of my favorite books that is coming out on the stands. Also really enjoying the title. Hold on, just got to find it in here.
Going through.
Well, you know, we got to keep in mind that they're all new titles that are coming out. I mean, I believe
Noonan.
the Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, has been been doing well, I think, and looking forward to. I think this is maybe wrapping up.
Did you like
current
the
storyline.
Ultimate Spider-Man, or are you talking about just Amazing?
I'm talking about Amazing Spider-Man.
And we're talking about comic books we haven't read yet because they haven't come out yet.
That's correct.
That's
And
correct.
What can I say? Maybe I'm a sucker, but Imperial number 1 is going to be top of my stack when it comes out tomorrow. Very excited for.
Oh, you think it's going to be the first thing we're going to talk about?
Yeah.
I'm not saying.
Exciting
And-
stuff coming
How about my
out
side?
tomorrow. One thing that I'm super excited about, DC Pride 2025 is coming
Yes.
out.
Yeah.
That is always a fantastic anthology. They're doing it a little differently this time with one story told by different writer and artist teams. Really curious to see how that executes.
It's
It's
hard.
always good. So it'll probably be good. And then what else? End of the Lore War in Star Trek 32. Really enjoying that crossover.
Dude,
So
you're a
excited
huge
about that.
lore warhead.
I'm a lore head, yes, 100%. And what else do I want to give a shout out?
Resurrection Man, Quantum Karma number 3 coming
yeah,
out.
that's
been loving
really
that book.
great. And I'm curious to check out Jump Scare number 4
Yes.
from Dark Horse Comics.
Another book I love.
Very fun, like superhero, weird horror, sci-fi, something or other mashup by Cullen Bunn and Danny Luckert. That's been a really interesting title to read as well. And all of those books and many more are going to be in our Stack podcast that debuts Wednesday, 9 a.m. in the Stack feed and the Comic Book Club feed. And folks, that is it for this week's show. A couple of people we want to thank. We want to thank Chris Condon and Jeffrey Allen Love for coming on, talking about Image Comics news for the Fallout out June 25th from Image Comics. Marguerite Bennett for talking about Paper Cuts. Flash Gordon, The Girl from Infinity Volume 1, that is coming out July 1st from Paper Cuts, excuse me. Next week on the show, Max Hoven is going to be here to talk about Our Love Unrest, and also the editor of Marvel's Venom is going to be here.
Oh, hey, that'll
You
be
might
fun.
know him as Jordan D. White returning to the
Yeah,
show.
returning.
The Jordan D. White.
Yeah, Jordan
Yes.
Delight White. Very excited to have him back. Comic Book Club News, our daily news podcast.
gonna
Check
be a
that
fun
out.
show,
Patreon.com/Comic Book Club. Support this show and all
Think
the
he'll bring
shows
his
we do.
uke?
I don't know. ComicBookClubLive.com for this show and many more. Until next time, we'll see you at the Comic Book Club.
Good night, folks.
Comic book club. Comic book club. Comic book club. They sit on crappy couches and they let the secrets leak. And occasionally they'll let their special guest speak. So grab your written hammer. Don't be late for it, 'cause their girlfriends can barely tolerate it. Comic book club.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Take care of yourself.